Welcome back to Whispered Unknown, where we delve into the shadows of history, searching for answers to the world's most baffling enigmas. Tonight, we journey far back in time, to a place of forgotten wonders, a city of unparalleled ancient sophistication, shrouded in an enduring mystery. We are speaking of Mohenjo-Daro, the Mound of the Dead, a name that echoes with the very question we seek to answer. What happened to the people of Mohenjo-Daro? Imagine, if you will, a sprawling metropolis built thousands of years ago, long before the Roman Empire even flickered into existence. Picture a city with wide, straight streets laid out in a perfect grid pattern, advanced plumbing that would put many modern cities to shame, and a level of urban planning that suggests a highly organized and intelligent society. This was Mohenjo-Daro, a jewel of the ancient world, sitting proudly on the banks of the mighty Indus River in what is now modern-day Pakistan. Its very existence challenges our preconceived notions of early civilization, pushing the boundaries of what we thought possible so far back in time. For centuries, this magnificent city lay buried beneath layers of earth and time, its story whispered only by the wind, until archaeologists stumbled upon its ruins in the early 1920s. What they uncovered was nothing short of astonishing. Mohenjo-Daro was not just a collection of mud huts. It was a testament to human ingenuity, a testament to a people who understood sanitation, urban design, and perhaps even a sense of civic duty in a way that truly bewilders us today. This was a city that flourished for many hundreds of years, a vibrant center of trade, culture, and daily life. But then, sometime around 1800 before the Common Era, it simply vanished. Not in a spectacular explosion, not in a documented war, but quietly, mysteriously, its inhabitants seemingly melting away into the vast expanse of history. The silence of Mohenjo-Daro is deafening, a silence that screams of unanswered questions. The story of Mohenjo-Daro is deeply intertwined with the broader narrative of the Indus Valley civilization, also known as the Harappan civilization, named after Harappa, another major site discovered around the same time. This civilization was truly enormous, stretching across an area of well over 1 million square kilometers, encompassing parts of what is now Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Western India. To put that into perspective, it was larger in geographical extent than both ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined, two of the most celebrated early civilizations. And within this vast realm, Mohenjo-Daro stood as one of its most prominent and sophisticated urban centers. Its population is estimated to have been around 40,000 people at its peak, a substantial number for any city of that era, making it one of the largest cities in the world at that time, a bustling hub of human activity and innovation. Let us take a deeper dive into the very fabric of Mohenjo-Daro, to truly grasp the scale of what we are dealing with, and perhaps to feel the faint echoes of the lives lived there. Imagine walking through its streets, not dusty, winding paths common in ancient settlements, but wide boulevards, some as wide as 10 meters, carefully oriented along the cardinal directions of north-south and east-west. These main thoroughfares intersected at precise right angles, dividing the city into a precise grid of rectangular blocks, each containing a cluster of houses and courtyards. This was not haphazard growth. This was deliberate, thoughtful, and highly skilled urban planning, a feat that suggests a centralized authority, or at least a powerful societal agreement on how to organize their communal living. It speaks of a society that valued order, efficiency, and perhaps a collective vision for their urban environment. Compared to the winding organic street plans of many Mesopotamian cities, Mohenjo-Daro's grid layout was truly revolutionary for its time, a testament to their advanced conceptual understanding of city design. The buildings themselves were primarily constructed from baked bricks, a material chosen for its durability and resistance to the annual floods of the Indus River. These bricks were remarkably uniform in size, typically measuring approximately 1 part thick 2 parts wide and 4 parts long, a standardization that points to a highly organized system of production, perhaps even a form of early industrial output. Imagine the sheer labor involved, the countless kilns burning, the legions of workers shaping and baking these millions upon millions of bricks. To construct a city of Mohenjo-Daro's size would have required an astronomical number of bricks, far more than a single family or village could produce. This indicates a specialized workforce, a high degree of craftsmanship, and a sophisticated logistical network to quarry the clay, fire the kilns, and transport the finished bricks to the construction sites. It speaks of a society that had mastered complex logistics and material production on a grand scale, truly impressive for a civilization over 4,000 years old. The houses were typically 2-story affairs, built around a central courtyard, providing privacy and ventilation. These courtyards would have been the heart of family life, offering light, air, and a communal space for various domestic activities. Many homes had their own private wells, dug deep to reach the water table, an incredible convenience and a sign of their advanced engineering capabilities. These private wells meant that residents did not have to travel far for fresh water, contributing significantly to their quality of life. They also had their own bathing areas, often with drains leading directly into the city's sophisticated sewage system. This level of domestic comfort and hygiene was practically unheard of in most parts of the ancient world, where basic sanitation was often an afterthought. And what a sewage system it was! This is perhaps one of the most astonishing aspects of Mohenjo-Daro and the entire Indus Valley civilization. Beneath the wide streets ran an intricate network of covered drains, crafted from those same standardized bricks, often capped with removable stone slabs for cleaning and maintenance. This was not merely a ditch at the side of the road. This was an underground plumbing system, designed to efficiently carry wastewater and sewage away from the residential areas and out of the city. Larger drains connected to smaller ones from individual houses, forming a cohesive and effective network. Such a system speaks volumes about the Mohenjo-Daro people's understanding of public health and hygiene. In an age when most cities were cesspools of disease, overflowing with refuse and waste, leading to rampant epidemics, Mohenjo-Daro stood out as a beacon of cleanliness, an almost incomprehensible achievement for its time. They clearly understood the link between waste disposal and disease prevention, a concept that wouldn't become widespread in the West until the 19th century. It's hard not to feel a sense of awe and a shiver of unease when contemplating a society so advanced in one aspect, yet so utterly lost to time in another. How could such brilliance simply vanish? Beyond the private dwellings and their impressive sanitation, Mohenjo-Daro also contained several monumental structures that further highlight its unique character. The city was typically divided into 2 main parts: a raised citadel, or upper city, and a sprawling lower city. The citadel, standing on a substantial artificial mound, housed what appear to be the city's most important public buildings. The most famous of these is the Great Bath, a massive public bathing tank constructed with waterproof brickwork and a natural tar-like sealant, an engineering marvel. It measures approximately 12 meters long, 7 meters wide, and 2.4 meters deep. Steps led down to the water from 2 sides, and there were small changing rooms and what appear to be individual bathing cubicles around its perimeter. A large well was likely used to fill the bath, and a corbelled drain allowed for the emptying of water. The purpose of the Great Bath is debated, but most scholars believe it was used for ritualistic bathing or ceremonial purposes, perhaps for religious purification, indicating a spiritual dimension to their daily lives. The very idea of a public facility of this magnitude, dedicated to cleanliness or ritual, suggests a communal spirit and perhaps even a degree of social cohesion that is remarkable. It points to a society that could mobilize significant resources and labor for public works, not just private residences. Adjacent to the Great Bath was what archaeologists refer to as the Great Granary, a large brick structure with a complex ventilation system, designed to store vast quantities of grain. While its exact function as a granary is debated by some, its size and design suggest a centralized storage facility for surplus agricultural produce, perhaps for distribution to the populace or for trade. This speaks to an organized economic system, capable of managing resources on a large scale, crucial for feeding a city of tens of thousands. Other notable structures in the citadel include a pillared hall, sometimes called the Assembly Hall or College, a large building with 20 pillars arranged in 4 rows, suggesting a space for public gatherings, administrative functions, or even a kind of educational institution. These public buildings, alongside the carefully planned residential areas, paint a picture of a society that prioritized order, public welfare, and communal living. What is perhaps even more striking than what was found at Mohenjo-Daro is what was not found. Unlike contemporary civilizations in Egypt or Mesopotamia, there is a conspicuous absence of grand temples, monumental palaces, or elaborate royal tombs. We find no towering statues of kings, no imposing pyramids dedicated to pharaohs, no clear evidence of a centralized autocratic ruler or a dominant priestly class. While there were undoubtedly leaders and social hierarchies, they do not seem to have expressed their power through the same kind of ostentatious display seen elsewhere. This lack of monumental art and architecture dedicated to individual rulers or deities further deepens the mystery of their social and political structure. Who governed this remarkable city? How were decisions made? How was order maintained without apparent kings or grand temples? We simply do not know. This absence of traditional power symbols adds another layer to the enigma of Mohenjo-Daro's disappearance. It's as if a great secret was held by these people, one we may never fully uncover. Their leaders were perhaps more communal, more focused on public good than personal aggrandizement. The people of Mohenjo-Daro were also skilled artisans and traders. Their economy was primarily agrarian, relying heavily on the fertile plains of the Indus River. They cultivated a wide variety of crops, including wheat, barley, peas, lentils, chickpeas, mustard, and sesame. Cotton cultivation is particularly noteworthy, as the Indus Valley people were among the first in the world to grow and process cotton for textiles, a significant technological and economic achievement. Archaeological finds of cotton fragments and cotton fibers at Mohenjo-Daro, dating back to around 3000 before the Common Era, confirm this. They also practiced animal husbandry, raising cattle, buffalo, sheep, goats, and chickens. This diverse agricultural base provided the necessary sustenance for their large urban populations. Beyond agriculture, trade played a crucial role. Evidence suggests extensive trade networks both within the civilization and with distant lands. Harappan artifacts, such as their distinctive seals and pottery, have been found in Mesopotamia, modern-day Oman, Afghanistan, and parts of Central Asia. Similarly, materials not native to the Indus Valley, like copper from Oman and Afghanistan, gold from Karnataka in southern India, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, and various semi-precious stones from different regions have been found at Mohenjo-Daro. This indicates a thriving import and export business. Goods such as timber, copper, gold, and precious stones were imported, while agricultural products, cotton textiles, and perhaps crafted goods were exported. This vast trading network underscores the interconnectedness of Mohenjo-Daro with the wider ancient world, making its disappearance even more perplexing. How could such a well-established and prosperous society simply fade away? The sophistication of their economic system is further highlighted by their use of remarkably uniform and precise weights and measures across the entire Indus Valley civilization. These weights, made of chert, were typically cubical and followed a binary system for smaller weights and a decimal system for larger ones. For example, weights often followed a progression of 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32 units and so on. The standard unit of weight seems to have been approximately 13.65 grams. This standardization would have greatly facilitated trade and commerce, both locally and internationally, ensuring fairness and efficiency in transactions. It is another strong indicator of a highly organized and administered society. In terms of craftsmanship and technology, the Mohenjo-Daro people were masters of their materials. Their pottery was well-fired, often painted with geometric and animal motifs. They developed advanced metallurgy, creating tools, weapons, and ornaments from copper and bronze. Discoveries include copper fishhooks, razors, saws, knives, and spearheads. They were skilled in working with precious metals like gold and silver, producing intricate jewelry. Bead making was a highly developed art, with exquisite beads made from carnelian, jasper, steatite, and other semi-precious stones. The famous dancing girl statue, a small bronze sculpture, and the priest king sculpture, a carved steatite bust, are prime examples of their artistic prowess and technical skill in casting and carving. These artifacts provide glimpses into their aesthetics, their beliefs, and their daily lives. Perhaps the most fascinating and frustrating discovery from the Indus Valley civilization are the seals. Small, square or rectangular objects made of steatite. They are intricately carved with images of animals, mythical creatures, and what appears to be a unique writing system, the Indus script. Over 2,000 seals have been discovered across Harappan sites, with many hundreds from Mohenjo-Daro alone. The animals depicted on the seals include tigers, elephants, rhinoceroses, buffalo, and a unique unicorn-like creature, suggesting a rich fauna and perhaps symbolic or religious significance. Tragically, this script remains undeciphered despite decades of attempts by scholars worldwide. It is a language frozen in time, refusing to yield its secrets. If only we could read these seals. What stories might they tell? What clues might they offer about the lives, beliefs, and ultimate fate of these people? The inability to read their language is one of the greatest barriers to understanding the Mohenjo-Daro civilization, leaving us to piece together their story from silent stones and broken pots. The meaning of their symbols, the names of their rulers, their religious texts, their historical records, all remain locked away, adding profoundly to the mystery of their disappearance. Now we must turn our attention to the heart of our mystery, the question that has haunted archaeologists and historians for decades. What happened to the people of Mohenjo-Daro? The evidence suggests that the city was not destroyed in a single catastrophic event, at least not one that left clear archaeological traces of widespread warfare or cataclysmic natural disaster. Instead, it seems to have undergone a gradual decline, followed by eventual abandonment. The later levels of excavation show a deterioration in urban planning, a decrease in the quality of construction, and a general decline in the sophisticated standards that characterized the city's heyday. Buildings were less carefully maintained, drains became clogged with refuse and silt, and less attention was paid to the once perfect grid layout. Houses were sometimes built over streets, indicating a breakdown of urban regulations. It was as if the very spirit of order and meticulousness that defined Mohenjo-Daro began to wither away, slowly, inexorably. So, what caused this decline? What forces were at play that led to the silent departure of tens of thousands of people from one of the most advanced cities of its time? Over the years, various theories have been proposed, some more compelling than others, but none fully explain the entirety of the collapse. Let us explore the leading hypotheses, each offering a piece of the puzzle, each adding another layer to the mystery. One of the most widely discussed theories centers on environmental change and climate shifts. The Indus Valley civilization was utterly dependent on the stability of its environment, particularly the Indus River and the monsoon rains that nourished its vast agricultural lands. Any significant alteration to these life-sustaining elements could have had catastrophic consequences, paleoclimate data, gathered from sediment cores, tree rings, stalagmites, and other natural records, suggests that around 4,200 years ago, approximately 2,200 before the Common Era, a major global aridification event occurred, known as the 4.2 kiloyear event. While this event had a significant impact on many civilizations worldwide, the specific decline of the late Harappan phase in the Indus Valley is generally dated a few centuries later, roughly from 1900 to 1700 before the Common Era. During this later period, regional paleoclimate studies indicate a prolonged period of weakening monsoon rains and increased aridity in the Indus Valley. Imagine the devastating impact of diminished rainfall on a civilization that relied so heavily on agriculture. Crop failures would become widespread and frequent, leading to severe food shortages and famine. The cultivation of water-intensive crops like wheat and barley would become increasingly difficult. Livestock, crucial for food and labor, would also suffer due to lack of pasture and water. The mighty rivers, including the Indus, would shrink, impacting not only irrigation, but also transportation and trade by river, making it harder to move goods and people. Life in the fertile plains would become increasingly difficult, unsustainable even. As resources dwindled, the sophisticated urban centers like Mohenjo-Daro would no longer be able to support their large populations. People would be forced to migrate, to seek out areas with more reliable water sources, scattering across the landscape, abandoning the grand cities they had built. Furthermore, another critical aspect of environmental degradation could have been the shifting course of rivers. Geological evidence suggests that the Gaga-Hakra river system, often identified by some scholars as the mythical Saraswati River mentioned in ancient Vedic texts, which once flowed through a significant portion of the Harappan heartland, began to dry up or change its course dramatically around this same period. This river system supported hundreds of Harappan settlements. If this river was a major lifeline for many Harappan communities, its disappearance would have directly contributed to their abandonment. Satellite imagery and geological surveys have revealed ancient river channels in areas that are now dry, supporting the idea of major hydrological shifts. The drying up of this vital waterway, combined with the general weakening of monsoon rains across the region, would have created an untenable situation for the millions of people who depended on these hydrological systems for their survival. It literally pulled the ground out from under them, rendering their lands barren. Another environmental factor often cited is deforestation. The people of Mohenjo-Daro and the wider Indus Valley civilization would have required vast amounts of timber for construction, for fuel to bake their millions of bricks in kilns, for smelting metals like copper and bronze, and for general heating and cooking. Over centuries, such extensive deforestation of the surrounding areas could have led to soil erosion, reduced water retention by the land, and further desertification of the environment. Imagine a landscape slowly being stripped bare, becoming less capable of supporting its population. While this might not have been a singular cause for collapse, it could have exacerbated the effects of a changing climate, pushing the environment beyond its carrying capacity. The land that once sustained them would gradually turn against them, becoming less fertile, less forgiving, contributing to a downward spiral. The evidence for climate change is compelling and widely accepted by many scholars today. Studies of ancient lake sediments in the region have revealed shifts in pollen and vegetation patterns consistent with prolonged drought and aridity. For example, analysis of sediment cores from Lake Kotla Daha in Haryana, India, shows a sharp decline in monsoon rainfall around the period of Harappan decline. Similarly, analysis of oxygen isotopes in stalagmites from caves in Oman and Meghalaya in northeast India, which serve as natural archives of past monsoon intensity, also indicate a significant weakening of the Indian summer monsoon during the period corresponding to the Harappan decline. These scientific findings paint a picture of a civilization grappling with profound and long-lasting environmental stress. The grandeur of their cities, their advanced planning, their impressive engineering, all would have been rendered moot in the face of a collapsing ecological foundation. It's a sobering thought that even the most advanced societies are ultimately at the mercy of the natural world. Climate change and resource depletion are not new challenges. They have been shaping human history for millennia. However, climate change alone might not be the entire story. Other environmental theories focus on catastrophic flooding. The Indus River, while a source of life, was also a source of immense destructive power. Mohenjo-Daro was built on a series of artificial mounds, standing several meters above the surrounding plain, specifically to protect it from the annual floods. Yet, archaeological excavations have indeed revealed multiple layers of silt and mud, sometimes several meters thick, indicating that the city was repeatedly inundated by severe floods throughout its history. In some instances, the city was completely submerged, and its inhabitants had to rebuild on top of the old structures, gradually raising the ground level of the city over centuries. There are at least 3 distinct flood levels observed in the lower city, showing successive periods of destruction and rebuilding. Imagine the sheer scale of such a disaster. A massive flood would not only destroy homes and infrastructure, it would also ruin agricultural lands, wash away standing crops, and disrupt trade routes by making river navigation perilous. Repeated floods would make life in Mohenjo-Daro increasingly untenable. The constant effort and resources required for rebuilding would eventually become too burdensome, diverting labor and wealth away from other essential activities like craftsmanship or long-distance trade. People might have simply grown weary of fighting against the relentless power of the river, choosing instead to seek drier, more stable ground elsewhere. The gradual deterioration in construction quality seen in the later phases of Mohenjo-Daro could be attributed to a population constantly rebuilding, perhaps with diminishing resources or simply losing the will to maintain the previous high standards. While floods were undoubtedly a persistent challenge, it is unlikely that a single flood event caused the entire civilization to collapse, but rather a series of increasingly severe or frequent inundations could have slowly eroded the city's resilience, making it less habitable and economically viable. Perhaps the most dramatic, and now largely discredited, theory for the collapse of Mohenjo-Daro and the Indus Valley civilization was the idea of an Aryan invasion. This theory gained prominence in the 1940s, largely championed by the British archaeologist Mortimer Wheeler. Wheeler proposed that the Harappan cities were destroyed by invading Indo-Aryan tribes from Central Asia, who were believed to have migrated into the Indian subcontinent around the time of the Harappan decline. He interpreted certain archaeological findings as evidence of a massacre. Specifically, Wheeler pointed to the discovery of several groups of skeletons found in huddled or unnatural positions within the streets and houses of Mohenjo-Daro. He described these as evidence of sudden violence, of people caught unawares and slaughtered. He famously wrote about victims of a massacre and hypothesized that these were the last desperate moments of the Mohenjo-Daro people, overcome by fierce invaders. The Vedic texts, ancient Indian religious scriptures composed much later, describe conflicts between incoming Aryan tribes and indigenous people, sometimes referring to fortified cities. Wheeler drew parallels between these descriptions and the fortified Harappan cities, suggesting that the Aryans were the destroyers of these urban centers, leading to the collapse of the Harappan civilization. This theory held sway for several decades, fitting neatly into colonial narratives about superior incoming races, replacing inferior indigenous ones. However, subsequent archaeological research and re-evaluation of the evidence have largely debunked the Aryan invasion theory as the primary cause of the Harappan collapse. The skeletons found at Mohenjo-Daro, while indeed in unusual positions, do not show clear signs of battle wounds, such as cut marks or blunt force trauma, consistent with a widespread massacre. Instead, many of them appear to be victims of disease or perhaps even a sudden natural disaster, like a collapse or localized flooding. The number of skeletons discovered, around 42 individuals in total across the entire sprawling site of Mohenjo-Daro, is also far too small to account for the destruction of a city that once housed tens of thousands. If a true invasion and massacre occurred, the archaeological record would show far more widespread human remains and evidence of organized violence. There is no widespread layer of ash or burning, no clear evidence of widespread destruction by fire or sword across the city that would be indicative of a major invasion. The fortifications Wheeler cited are now understood to be flood defenses or city walls, not necessarily built for military defense against human invaders. Furthermore, the idea of a mass migration of Aryans as a unified invading force has been heavily revised. Modern genetic studies of populations in the Indian subcontinent indicate a more complex picture of gene flow and migration over millennia, suggesting a gradual process of interaction and assimilation rather than a sudden, violent overthrow. Linguistic studies also suggest a more nuanced and prolonged interaction between different language groups. The cultural continuity between the Harappan civilization and later Indian cultures also argues against a complete destruction and replacement of the population. Many elements of Harappan culture, as we will discuss, persisted. While there were undoubtedly migrations and cultural interactions over time, the concept of a singular, devastating Aryan invasion that wiped out Mohenjo-Daro and other Harappan cities is no longer supported by the weight of archaeological and scientific evidence. The mystery remains, deep and unyielding, compelling us to seek other explanations. This debunking highlights the importance of re-examining historical narratives and allowing new evidence to challenge old assumptions. Another intriguing, though less easily proven, theory suggests that disease or widespread epidemics could have played a role in the abandonment of Mohenjo-Daro. While the city boasted an impressive sanitation system, crowded urban living conditions could still be ripe for the rapid spread of infectious diseases. A virulent plague or epidemic, perhaps brought in through trade from distant lands, or emerging from local unsanitary conditions that eventually overwhelmed their excellent drainage system, could have decimated the population, weakening the social fabric and leading to a gradual exodus. If a significant portion of the population succumbed to illness or fled in fear of contagion, the city would slowly empty out as people either died or migrated to escape the disease. The challenge with this theory is the lack of direct archaeological evidence. Diseases rarely leave clear traces on ancient skeletons, especially in a climate like that of the Indus Valley, where preservation is difficult. Bones can reveal signs of chronic illnesses like arthritis or malnutrition, but not usually acute infectious diseases. However, the skeletons found in huddled positions, once interpreted as massacre victims, could equally be victims of a sudden epidemic, collapsing where they stood or dying en masse in a short period, perhaps even buried hastily without proper ritual. The lack of signs of violent trauma on these remains could lend some indirect support to a disease hypothesis. Without more conclusive bioarchaeological evidence, such as ancient DNA analysis of pathogen remains, this remains largely speculative, an unsettling possibility in the shadowy narrative of Mohenjo-Daro's demise. The idea of an unseen enemy, a microscopic killer, slowly emptying a grand city is certainly a chilling thought, fitting for our whispered unknown. Beyond environmental and military explanations, some scholars point to a possible economic collapse or disruption of trade networks. As we discussed, Mohenjo-Daro was a bustling center of commerce, engaged in extensive trade with distant lands like Mesopotamia, modern-day Oman, and other regions. If these vital trade routes were disrupted, either due to political instability in other regions, changes in demand for Harappan goods, or navigational challenges caused by environmental shifts, It could have severely impacted the economic vitality of the city. A decline in trade would mean a reduction in wealth, a shortage of essential imported goods like copper or valuable stones, and a general economic downturn. This would directly affect the city's ability to maintain its elaborate infrastructure, fund its large population, and provide the resources necessary for its complex social organization. Evidence for this theory is subtle but present. Archaeologists observe a decrease in the number of exotic artifacts from distant lands in the later levels of Mohenjo-Daro and other Harappan sites. This could indicate a decline in long-distance trade. Furthermore, if the agricultural base of the civilization was already under stress due to climate change or flooding, the concurrent decline in trade would create a powerful double blow, leading to widespread poverty and desperation. Such economic pressures could lead to internal unrest, a breakdown of the social order, and a gradual outmigration of people seeking better opportunities or simply basic survival. The slow decay of the city's infrastructure, the less precise construction, and the general lack of upkeep in its later phases could also be a symptom of a failing economy, where resources were simply no longer available to maintain the grand standards of the past. When people are struggling to survive, maintaining elaborate drainage systems or perfect street layouts becomes a secondary concern. It is important to understand that the disappearance of Mohenjo-Daro, and indeed the broader Harappan civilization, was most likely not due to a single isolated event. The most widely accepted contemporary view is that it was a complex interplay of multiple factors, a perfect storm of environmental, economic, and possibly social pressures that slowly eroded the civilization's ability to sustain itself. Imagine a house of cards, each card representing a vital component of their society: a stable climate, fertile land, robust trade networks, effective governance, and a healthy population. If multiple cards are removed or weakened simultaneously, the entire structure becomes unstable and eventually collapses. The long-term weakening of the monsoon system, leading to prolonged droughts and decreased agricultural yields, would have been a foundational blow. Scientific studies of climate patterns for this period consistently point to a significant reduction in rainfall and increased aridity. This environmental stress would have been exacerbated by the changing courses of rivers, particularly the drying up or shifting of the Ghaggar-Hakra system, potentially leaving once fertile areas dry and uninhabitable. As food production declined, the ability of the large urban centers to feed their populations would have been severely strained. This would lead to resource scarcity, potentially internal conflicts over dwindling resources, and widespread migration away from the stressed heartland. People would have simply left in search of food and water, slowly but surely emptying the great cities. Concurrently, the repeated and devastating floods from the Indus River would have placed immense pressure on the city's infrastructure and its inhabitants' morale. We know Mohenjo-Daro was built up several times on artificial mounds because of repeated inundations. The constant need to rebuild, the loss of life and property, the disruption to daily life, all would have drained resources and resilience. It would have been a relentless battle against nature. If trade networks were also disrupted at the same time, perhaps due to environmental shifts impacting river and sea transport, or political turmoil in partner regions like Mesopotamia, the economic stability of Mohenjo-Daro would have been further undermined. The city would have become less attractive, less viable for its inhabitants. The grand urban experiment simply became too expensive and too difficult to maintain. In such a complex scenario, the population would not have vanished overnight. Instead, it would have been a gradual process of depopulation. People would have slowly moved eastward and southward, seeking areas with more reliable water sources and better agricultural prospects. They would have carried with them their knowledge, their skills, and elements of their culture. This would explain why there is no sudden, violent end to Mohenjo-Daro, but rather a slow decline, a fading away, until the once thriving city became a silent ruin. The grand planning, the impressive engineering, the vibrant trade, all slowly dismantled by the relentless forces of nature and circumstance. It's a testament to the fact that even the most meticulously planned societies can succumb to the cumulative weight of environmental and economic challenges. The aftermath of Mohenjo-Daro's abandonment is not one of complete disappearance. While the great cities were deserted, the people did not simply vanish from the face of the earth. The Harappan civilization underwent a process of de-urbanization, but its cultural legacy persisted. The people moved to smaller settlements, often in more easterly and southerly regions of the subcontinent, particularly towards Gujarat, Rajasthan, and the Ganga-Yamuna Doab in northern India. These regions were experiencing more stable monsoon patterns at the time, offering better conditions for agriculture and settlement. Here, they adapted to new environments and continued their way of life, albeit in a less centralized and urbanized form. This period is often referred to as the late Harappan phase or post-urban Harappan phase, characterized by smaller villages and a shift in settlement patterns. Archaeological evidence suggests that many elements of the Harappan culture endured and evolved into later Indian cultures. For instance, the agricultural practices, particularly the cultivation of cotton, wheat, and barley, continued. The distinctive Harappan pottery traditions, while evolving, show clear lines of continuity. Certain art forms, and perhaps even some religious symbols found in later periods, show a remarkable persistence from the Harappan era. The famous Pashupati seal, depicting a horned figure seated in a yogic posture surrounded by animals, is often seen as a precursor to the Hindu deity Shiva, indicating a deep root for certain religious concepts. The significance of water for ritual purification, as evidenced by the Great Bath, may have influenced later Hindu bathing practices in sacred rivers like the Ganges. Even the precise Harappan weights and measures, so crucial to their economy, continued to be used in some form for centuries after the decline of the major cities, adapted and integrated into subsequent economic systems. Some scholars even posit that certain social hierarchies or craft specializations might have found their origins in Harappan society, though this is a subject of ongoing academic debate. The Harappan people did not disappear. They simply transitioned, adapted, and became the foundation for future cultures. So, the people of Mohenjo-Daro did not simply disappear. They adapted, they migrated, and they transformed. Their sophisticated urban lifestyle might have become unsustainable, but their resilience allowed their culture to morph and flow into the vast river of Indian history. The mystery then shifts from one of outright annihilation to one of profound societal transformation, a slow, silent scattering rather than a single shattering blow. It is a mystery of adaptability and persistence in the face of overwhelming odds. The spirit of Mohenjo-Daro, though its physical manifestation withered, lives on in the genes and cultural echoes of the Indian subcontinent. Their story is a powerful testament to human resilience and the continuous flow of cultural heritage across millennia. The story of Mohenjo-Daro serves as a powerful reminder of the fragility of even the most advanced human civilizations. It shows us that even with remarkable ingenuity, foresight, and social organization, societies are deeply vulnerable to environmental shifts, economic pressures, and the relentless march of time. Mohenjo-Daro was a shining example of Bronze Age urbanism, a testament to what humanity could achieve thousands of years ago. Its planned streets, its sanitation systems, its advanced crafts, all speak of a people who were far from primitive, and yet they succumbed to a combination of forces that proved too great to overcome. The precise details of their decline remain an open question, a subject of ongoing research and debate. Was it the slow strangulation of prolonged drought, gradually reducing their agricultural capacity and making sustenance impossible for such a large population? Was it the crushing blows of repeated and devastating floods, making their meticulously built city increasingly difficult to maintain and rebuild? Was it a combination of these environmental calamities, pushing a well-ordered society beyond its breaking point, forcing them to abandon their urban centers for smaller, more manageable settlements? Or perhaps factors we have not yet fully understood, lurking in the undeciphered script or the unexcavated depths, waiting to be discovered by future archaeologists? The silence of Mohenjo-Daro is its most profound message, a warning from the ancient world that even the greatest achievements are temporary, and that our dependence on the delicate balance of nature is absolute. The ongoing research into Mohenjo-Daro and the Indus Valley civilization involves various scientific disciplines: archaeology to unearth and analyze physical remains, paleoclimate science to reconstruct ancient weather patterns, geology to understand river dynamics and land shifts, and even genetics to trace population movements. Each field brings a new piece to this colossal puzzle. The mystery of Mohenjo-Daro is a living mystery, constantly being re-evaluated as new evidence emerges and new technologies provide fresh insights. It challenges us to think critically, to avoid simplistic explanations, and to appreciate the complex interplay of factors that shape human history. As we conclude our journey into the silent streets of Mohenjo-Daro, the echoes of its past remain, haunting us with their unanswered questions. Thousands of years later, this remarkable city still stands, albeit in ruins, as a monument to human ambition and to the humbling power of the forces that shape our world. The people of Mohenjo-Daro may be gone, their voices silenced, their script unreadable, but their story continues to be whispered through the winds that sweep across the ancient mounds, a story of brilliance, mystery, and the enduring enigma of our human past. Their fate reminds us that history is not a static collection of facts, but a living, breathing puzzle, waiting for us to uncover its next piece, if we only listen closely to the whispers of the unknown. They left us a legacy of ingenuity, a riddle of their demise, and a timeless lesson about the intricate relationship between humanity and its environment. Thank you for joining us on this exploration into the shadows of history. Until next time, keep questioning, keep searching, and keep listening to the whispers.